Okay, it's 8 o'clock. Call to order the meeting of the EDA, Front Royal Warren County, May 24th, 2019. First item on the agenda or second adoption of the agenda. Are there additions or deletions to our agenda? Hearing none, then we will approve the minutes of the regular
You need a
meeting.
motion to adopt the agenda.
You
You need a motion to adopt
do?
the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the agenda? Say aye. Aye. Approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes of April 29th and May 2nd?
Second.
Have a motion to accept the minutes as published to us. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Financials.
Right, should you split that with, since we had a special meeting minutes in there too, should you clarify that we're approving both of them?
I did say April and May.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
My
sir.
first.
Anyone who didn't make one of the meetings, they just voting. So it's in the record, just reflect that you had a special meeting, right? On May 2nd, I believe that was, just reflect that he abstained.
Let's see, financials, and we do not at this time have clear-cut report on financials. It's still making and be published as soon as it's corrected. County Administrator update, Doug Stanley.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, first FY 19-20 budget, we had Board of Supervisors held a public hearing on May 7th on proposed tax rates. This was the second hearing that was required due to our reassessment process where tax rates were over 1% over the equalized rate. Meeting was heavily attended with over 42 speakers, the majority of whom supported the tax rate proposed salary increases for teachers and other personnel by a 3-2 vote. The board approved a rate of 65.5, which is 6 cents over the equalized rate of 59.5. Again, I would note the adopted rate, the county still has the third lowest rate in the region. The adopted budget is significant and allows the county to provide all employees, including school staff, a 3% cost of living effective July 1 of 2019, and provides for county staff $300,000 to begin phase 1 of our implementation of our pay and classification study. It also provides about over $1 million for the school system to begin their implementation. And hopefully that will result in fewer teachers leaving the community. I know the adopting the tax rate was a difficult decision for the board. One thing they did was ask each department to slash its budget by 1.2%. And it sounds like a small number, but for some smaller departments it is a tall order. So each department head constitutional officer has to come back and bring those cuts. For the EDA budget, we approved we had plugged into our budget before we received your budget, the debt service numbers from last year, and the doubling the operation from the 54 back to the 108 number, which was the previous year's budget. So we think we're getting what you all need as far as the budget goes. But happy to answer any questions from the board. Mr. John Vance was recognized by the New England Shenandoah Valley for his commitment to public service. Mr. Vance served on the Board of Supervisors from January 2000 to December 31, 2005, and served on a number of organizations, including the hospital board over the years. Development Review Committee discussed projects in the county, including conditional use permits for 5 short-term tourist rentals located throughout the county. The Rivermont Fire Station, we have received FAA approval, erosion and sediment control, DEQ. They've scheduled, I believe, a pre-construction meeting next week and we'll be scheduling a groundbreaking ceremony as well. I'll make sure to reach out and let your board be notified about it. Thank you guys for y'all's support on that project. The building permit for a cell tower on Happy Creek Road is waiting for VDOT approval. Valve Lane is open with a temporary occupancy permit. They're still completing their lighting and landscaping, but essentially open to the public. And there's a potential pet store in the former Sweet Fall space at Riverdale Commons. Committee also discussed projects in town, including a proposed harbor freight. I believe that's over in the shopping center where Food Line used to be in Big Lots. Dunkin' Donuts is open on South Street. There's a proposed dog training facility on 11th Street. A proposed CrossFit gym on Jackson Street. That's the old Shoals and Busy Bees building. And it's been approved for interior demolition of the existing space. The new hospital's received a building permit for the foundation, and looks like they're up there making good progress with this good weather, right, Mark?
Absolutely.
And there's a salon going in the former vintage Swank location on Main Street. Health and Human Services, the only thing left we got to do, we're installing 3 sections of new windows over the summer. The rest of that project is essentially complete. Marriott, and I think they're looking for like a June, July opening. They're finishing up landscaping and seating this week, and I'm sure good one work on the inside. A couple other things I know we've been taking over mowing operations and making adjustments on our side. I hope it's meeting your expectations, Doug. If you have any concerns, please reach out to me. I know we're not doing as much as probably EDA. EDA did a lot of side mowing and stuff before, so we'll go back out and review to make sure everything you want done is done. But certainly, like this building, 404 Fairgrounds, the major facilities at Ball Drive, those are getting taken care of on a regular basis. And last thing, whatever y'all can do to push the audit along, we obviously, it's a component unit for us. We can't complete our FY18 audit until you guys complete yours. So we appreciate whatever you can do to push that along, get it adopted on your end. So happy to answer any questions if you have.
What's Harbor Freight? Is that a retail store?
It's a retail store, and I don't know.
There's one in Winchester. It started out in San Francisco and had a lot of online type stuff apparently in advertisements. It mostly has Chinese goods. Pretty good prices on most of it. So.
Tariffs might change those. So I think they're looking at Big Lots, maybe looking at bigger space, and they may be looking at moving around maybe the former Big Lot space. So I think all that's happening down there at the Food Line Shopping Center.
So they're like a tool
Right.
type thing, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you get a flyer every so often in the paper.
They advertise a lot more in search.
So some stuff that Royal Farms has, and you'll see some overlap over there.
So are they going into where Shop and Save was, or are they going down along the strip of?
I think they're looking maybe, and Big Lots maybe looking at even the Food Line space and going larger. So I think they're looking at some options there at that shopping center.
Is the Food Line Shop and Save?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's hard. Old habits die hard, you know, we do it that 20
I
years.
forgot all about them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug. Town manager update, Joe Waltz.
Morning. I'll try not to repeat some things that Doug already said, but go over planning and zoning activities. Planning Commission in April approved a site plan for a automated ice and filtered water vending building over by Joe's Steakhouse, kind of a self-serve ice and water machine, which is going to be kind of cool. I think they do have one up in Winchester near Tractor Supply. The Board of Architectural Review did not meet in April, but they did meet here in May to look at a change of facade for the Village Swing Building, which Doug talked about. Board of Zoning Appeals, that didn't meet in April, but they were scheduled to meet in May to discuss something minor about somebody building a shed without a permit. The Community Development Block Grant, in April we completed the data collection for the parking study. We do now have a draft updated parking study for the downtown area as part of this grant. We did do a compliance review through the Virginia Department of Historical just to make sure that we're on track. We have a two-year time frame to get all the activities done under this grant, so they do have compliance reviews periodically to make sure that you're on track. We did begin work on a wayfinding sign project as part of this. And we're still looking at designs for the proposed town plaza down by the gazebo area, which will include the restrooms. And we're still waiting on DHR approval before we can move forward with the facade programs. Dunkin' Donuts, obviously that is open for business. EDA workforce, still no update there. The site plan's been approved. We're just waiting for submissions. Front Row Limited Partnership, we're still waiting submissions by the applicants. Happy Creek Knolls, Section 4. This month in May, the preliminary plan was approved for 33 residential units in Section 4. Hospital under construction, and IT Federal Site Building 1 is still under construction. Town projects, the Route 522 corridor water upgrade project. CHA did complete the feasibility study that identified the best route in connection to our existing water infrastructure from this side of the river over to the corridor. The preferred route for redundancy is estimated to cost between $8.5 to $12 million. Our next step is to perform a preliminary engineering review, which would be submitted to the Virginia Department of Health. We're in the progress of working on that right now. We'll have it done in August is what our goal is. Happy Creek Road Phase 2 project. We did submit last year into the Smart Scale funding. We didn't score well. We received 0 funding. So this year we're gonna put the project in revenue sharing and see if we can at least get some funds to start the construction of that project. Still though, that project is about $16.9 million. We're tentatively trying to look at a start date of 2026. So that's where we're at there. Main Street Extension, the project is approximately 95% complete. I did say the road striping and the bioretention is still left, but when I went by here today, I saw that all the striping was done here on West Main, so we still just have the bioretention area to finish. Police Department, we did reach substantial completion. We're moved in. We have our open house scheduled for June 8th from 11 to 3. Hope y'all can make it out there and get a tour of the facility. We plan to have activities for children, have a little food. It would be a good event for the community. Royal Phoenix Lift Station, which is out here, is approximately 80% complete. Remaining items include running electrical lines down to the facility as well as getting the pump certified. Just for a reminder, that facility will serve over 4,000 employees that could be in this facility. Westminster Sidewalk Project, I'm happy to say after 5 years this project is done. So I will be able to remove that off this list. I was pretty fast, but I'm here to answer any questions.
Could you elaborate on the water infrastructure project? What are you trying to achieve with that? What's the objective?
The objective is to have a redundant loop. Right now, we only have 1 feed goes across the rivers and under 66 it feeds the corridor. If we had a breakage in that point, then there's no loop capabilities. We'd be out of water. And
So everything north of that basically would be out of water?
Yeah. And this is something that's viable for everybody along that corridor. And the driver was Dominion. When they came in there, they have backup money of $3.5 million to contribute to this project because it's that important to them. And so that's kind of been the driving force behind it.
Any idea of timing on any of that at this point?
No, I don't. Like I said, we're moving forward with the PER. I'm hoping within 2 years, but that is until we find out what the PER comes out and figure out the final route, and then easements is going to be one of the bigger things to come across.
So Canada's going to contribute to the 8 to 12 million cost?
3.5 is their maximum.
Where's the rest of the money?
Well, actually, what we're right now, we're looking at the water and sewer fund seems to be well funded. For example, a lot of the tap fees we're getting out Blue Ridge Shadows, and tap fee we got from the hospital. So the water and sewer in itself is funded well, And we may have to tweak the rates a little bit once we find out the final price on this, but we don't know yet.
The other thing is your Dominion after year 5 starts paying.
Well, that's true too, right. Dominion Resource has a contract with the town, and it's tiered off where eventually, with probably 5 more years, there'll be a double town rates, which brings in more additional revenue.
Thank you. Questions?
Just a quick question, maybe on the county and the town reports, when we talk about projects, would it be possible to note on there any obligations that the EDA, responsibilities the EDA has in the project, just to remind us that, by the way, we are doing something with the fire station, etc. Just so that we can all see what our part of the project is.
Duly noted.
Yeah, just sentences, plenty, just, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Executive Director.
Okay, well, we're finishing up our 3rd full week here, Gretchen and I, and I feel like we've made some pretty good progress. I think we're well on the way to getting things organized here within the office, identifying where files are at, looking at our internal operations and so forth. And I want to thank John Anzavino for the long hours and the hard work that he put in over the last few months. I can tell he's done a great deal of work to develop some best practices and operational and internal structure that we're taking and moving the organization forward. I also want to thank Dan for all of his work and Doug Stanley. I'll admit I would be far more lost without them, no question about that. Also, the county's cleaning and maintenance staff, the work that they're doing here in the building and out on our properties is greatly appreciated, and we really want to thank them. I want to thank Gretchen. She's going through here. She's helped get things organized. She's been great to help collaborate with on some of the projects that we have ongoing that we'll discuss in a few minutes. Working with our accountants to help identify where we're at financially. Speaking of financial, we've been working with Hottle and Willis, working with Heather Tweedy to ensure that we have an understanding where our revenues and expenses are at, and that everything that we're doing here in the current day is properly accounted for. They produced, or she has produced, reports on our microloans and USDA loan fund programs. We're up to speed and getting familiar with our bank accounts, our loans and assets, trying to gain an understanding of where we're at there. And we're also meeting with the banks, through whom we have our deposits and our loans, so that we can gain an understanding of where we're at with them and what our options might be as we go forward, if we look to refinance things, or if we buy and sell properties, what our options are there. We've worked with Queen Consulting to get our new computers up and running, or new emails. As you can see in the report, they've installed software, needed security, encryption, firewalls. I guess our network here was pretty much open to anybody who came by. They could have got on our network. We fixed that now so that that's more secure. And they've also helped us out with the phone systems here internally and some of the streamlining of that equipment. Under our properties, we are analyzing the revenues and expenses of each of the EDA-owned rental properties. As you know, we have, I believe it's 5 or 6 different properties, tenants around the county. We're looking at the insurance policies and all the expenses that we have, the maintenance issues that we have with each property. We have some appraisals that'll be coming in on a few of these. And so over the next month or so, working with the board, we're going to try to identify just exactly what's going on with each one and try to develop some strategies for each one and see what's in the best interest of the EDA and the tenants and the community in general as it relates to each of those properties. We have some pre-existing bids and recommended specifications for future bids for some of the work that we know that we'll need to do. And that relates to roofing and HVAC work. When we get to the point where we're ready to go out to bid, we will certainly be following the county's procurement policy and the state's. I think we're going to go above and beyond. There's certain work that if it's below a certain dollar amount, you just have to get phone quotes, but I'm not comfortable with that. I want to get written quotes on everything, so we'll certainly do that. We've got a good understanding of the rental payment history for each of our properties, and we're going to work toward collecting delinquent rents for the ones that are behind a little bit. Under prospects, we're currently working with the State Economic Development Partnership with several prospects for the 426 Ball Drive property, the Atlantic Skyline building. And we have several interested parties there. One is an auto parts manufacturer from Germany. We have a local entity here that's very interested in the property. We have another couple of manufacturers through the Economic Development Partnership that we're also entertaining right now. And they're each at different stages in their search. Most of them are really in the beginning stages as they're looking at different properties within Virginia and then throughout the country as well. We have a regional law firm that's expressed interest in a location in Front Royal, and I've spoken with Joe about that and forwarded information to Jeremy, but Felicia, I want to definitely work with you on that, and I'll get with you on that. And any prospect that's looking in Front Royal, I definitely want to collaborate with you on that, of course, and make sure that we're working together on that. But what I did do on this particular one is I forwarded the information that Jeremy provided me on your tax incentives and your facade improvement grants, and I've got that to the client, and so I'll try to facilitate an introduction to you and make sure you guys are off and running on that.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Sure. Here in our building, we have a company, it's a wine and beer testing laboratory that will be right next door to us, so I'll have to make sure I stay out of there. But they're planning to move into Suite C in mid-June. We've got some artifacts, I guess you would call them, from the Aptech site that are over there, so we'll be working to get those moved out and get the place cleaned up for them. And Dan and I are working on the lease right now with the client to get that finalized, so hopefully we can get them moved in there and get that space occupied here soon. The VEDP site characterization project, this is something I'm personally excited about. This is the meat and potatoes of economic development. So what this is it's a project where the Virginia General Assembly has earmarked $2 million for the State Economic Development Partnership to take a look at the inventory of sites in the state of Virginia that are at least 25 contiguous acres or larger. And they're asking all the local development authorities, including us, to gather all of the existing due diligence on each of those sites and get that uploaded to the state's database. It's called IBS, okay? And that's the database that the state uses to entertain companies that are looking to come into Virginia or existing companies that are looking to expand or relocate within the state. So they have, we have 4 sites right now that are on their database that qualify for this characterization program. Right now, Gretchen and I are working to gather the existing geotechnical reports, wetland studies, environmental reports, and anything else that we have on the Stevens Industrial Park and the Front Royal Warren County Industrial Park, and get that uploaded to the site. We found some existing documents here. We're also reaching out to the engineers that have worked on these sites to try to get things in digital form. A lot of the reports that we're getting are over 5 years old, and so subsequently we're going to probably need to get fresh reports at some point. After we get this, we're going to have to also go back and get information. I just found out, Gretchen, they're going to ask us in the next phase to upload all the information we have for the Avtech site and the Happy Creek site. So fortunately, we have a lot of that information. So what this study does, as they gather the existing information, they will also rank our sites through a tier system. I think I've got that here somewhere. The tiering system is a way to rank the sites as it relates to site readiness for clients. Let's pass this around. And so what it does, it's a 1 through 5, or really a 0 through 5 system that shows how ready the sites are, for a client. And you can see there for yourself what that is, but they will rank our sites for us. They'll tell us what tier each one is. They'll identify the work that needs to be done. They'll identify the work that needs to be done. They'll also identify some funding sources that are available for us to get the rest of that work done. General ballpark figures, for instance, for geotechnical reports, is $6,000 to $10,000 per site. Phase 1 environmental studies can be $10,000 to $15,000. To get a site up to
Sorry.
look at all the confusion that caused. To get a site up to tier 4 or tier 5 requires topographical surveys and an ALTA survey. That's when you start getting into the money, especially on the larger sites. So, in any case, that's where we're at with that. And we'll go forward from there. Business retention, I'm anxious to get out and start working with our existing businesses, and Doug Stanley has graciously offered to help me host a business roundtable meeting, which are existing meetings that I believe the county used to have with the business community to get together and talk about relevant issues and resources that can be brought to the table. So I'm anxious to do that, and I think we're going to try to do that sometime in the month of June. As we organize that, it's important that I get out and meet some of the resource providers in the community so that I can understand a lot of the things that we can bring to the table for our businesses. So toward that end, I'm going to be meeting with Sarah French with the Blue Ridge Technical Center. I'm going to be meeting with the Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Council next door. Which way is it that way? To get up to speed on all the things that they're doing. Lord Fairfax Community College, meeting with the town, I believe next week. And just trying to get a feel for everything that's out there, so when I meet with the businesses, I know what we can offer. Internal management, as I mentioned before, Gretchen has worked hard to help organize the office and get an inventory on documents and files and maps. She's been through the vacant units in the basement space here and identified the issues. We do have some leaks here in the office, and last night I was standing out in the hallway and a drop of water hit my arm and came through the hole in the ceiling out there. We've got leaks in Unit A, Unit C, throughout. We had a gentleman offer to take a look at the roof here very, very recently, and he said that there are some issues here. So I get the feeling that's something we're going to have to add to the list for our maintenance.
Does the county, or do we have any kind of a roof preventative maintenance program? I mean, it sure seems like we spend a lot of time talking about roofing.
We do not have a preventative maintenance program. Something John did on the HVAC side was he implemented a continuing maintenance program for the HVAC for this building. We have no such thing in existence yet for any of our.
Mark, we've had an outside vendor that we brought in to do periodic reviews and checks of all our facilities, and that might be something to recommend. That's all he does. He doesn't do the work, so there's no benefit for him to identify anything, but he goes and does detailed reports on different facilities. He'll give you, hey, you've got 5 years left on this roof, whatever repairs need to be made in short term, long term, those types of things. So.
Okay, sounds great. And finally, the Virginia Industrial Developers Authority Institute. Gray and Ed and Tom and I just recently attended that yesterday and the day before as a conference down in Richmond for IDAs and EDAs. Talks about the basics of what an IDA and EDA is, what the rights and responsibilities and everything are. The FOIA requirements, we talked about those, best practices, financing tools, the site characterization project, and there was also presentations on real estate acquisition and disposition, through an IDA or an EDA. So it was very educational for us, very timely, and we got to go to that. I mentioned before Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Commission. Jumped ahead a little bit, I guess, but I'm going to be meeting with Ashley Schickel from that entity here in the near future. They have a variety of initiatives that they're working on. There's the Go Virginia initiative, through which there's funding available, possibly for a lot of things that we would be working on with our sites, and also for other initiatives. So looking forward to meeting with her. And then finally, our revised personnel policy. John Anzavino has submitted a draft for changes to our personnel policy that has not been updated since 2000. So I think it's probably time. And Dan is going to look those over, and we're hoping to have something for the board's review at the June meeting. So overall, I think we've made some pretty good progress the last 3 weeks, and I'm optimistic about going forward. I think we need to look at developing a long-term plan regarding our financial picture. And I'm also interested in, at some point in the future, working on updating our strategic plan internally for our organization. I know the county updated or did a visioning plan within the last year or so. There's a lot of elements in there that we can draw upon to take a look at our main focus areas. But I look forward to working with the board and the town and the county to all get on the same page and in the same gear and go forward. There's outside facilitators that may be able to help us with that. That could be something that we could look at. I'm also interested in looking at rebranding our development authority and looking at PR and marketing, and there's a variety of outside firms that may be able to help us in that regard. So those are just some of the things that we can look at. Any questions?
Questions for the,
I have a comment. I was just amazed at the number of grants and other services that were available, basically, for free for the taking. Is there any way that we can get a list from VITA of those and also the other services that, people are willing to give and offer?
Absolutely.
Because that would be helpful, not just for us, but when you have your business, your round table that you're gonna have to have a handout to give out to people to look at it and things they wouldn't even necessarily know about.
Right, and at that conference, they gave us this flash drive, and on this flash drive is a list of all those folks and other resources, and I'm glad to share it out with you. You probably know about most of them, but just in case, I'll share all this with you and our businesses. And I'll probably post a lot of these on our website too, so that they'd be available for folks.
anything else? Any other questions?
Two quick comments. One, these grants and incentives they talked about, the success rate's about 20%, I would say. Is about what it actually, that you're successful. Is that about right, what it is? So they present all of these and they're good to apply for, but we shouldn't bank on anything from them.
I think we've learned from past experience.
Just to comment, there's not nearly as much, particularly how restricted their funding is, how much they have. Got approval to do a flood control project, but they didn't give us any money for 5 years. Type of thing that sits in there. But this report, I really want to commend you for what you're doing to outreach in the community. I think that's really important that we get ourselves established next door. And when I went over there, they said they hadn't seen anybody in a while. It's very good that you're going there and then out to the business community and with the town and the county department people.
The key to success, I think, there's a lot of communities that they just tend to want to work with themselves. They don't want to reach outside of their area and collaborate with anybody. And I think you're cheating yourself. And if you just work with everybody, the Northern Shenandoah, there's a Shenandoah Valley Workforce Development Board. I've spoken with them and I work with a lot of these people through my former job. And I think there's some room for improvement there in working with that group and bringing their resources to the table, not only for ourselves, but for our businesses. There's opportunities to work in collaboration with our competitors in Frederick County, in Fauquier County, in Loudoun County on joint initiatives for marketing and for workforce resources. Frederick County is probably the best in the state for some of the workforce programs they have, which they have invited us to participate with. There's the Worlds of Work. They have a widget cup competition for their students. They have a manufacturing week. And some of those things our companies have been invited to join. Some of those things are just for them in Clark County, and I think
The city?
and the cities. And then I think they also visit Shenandoah that they reach out to also.
Yes.
Shenandoah and Clark. So, maybe we can piggyback on those efforts, or maybe we can develop our own efforts. And that's one of the things I'll be talking to Sarah French about. And Jeannie and Clark has also, reached out to me and said, hey, of course, they got the truck driving thing here. Pointing the right way. Nope. I need a compass. Set it right there. Anyway, so that's, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments concerning the executive director's report? We'll move on to old business, memorandum of understanding of fiscal agency services. Now, this is something we voted on that we are requesting that the county government keep our books. This is a nice summary page here on the top. Annual compensation be $7,500. EDA will employ 2 full-time employees. Such employees will be EDA employees. Personal policies and procedures. Does anybody have any questions about this? I think this is what we wanted.
I have something.
Okay.
I think that should specify that we're talking about the executive director and the assistant, the employees, because, the way it reads,
There are going to be 2 additional employees. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying the 2 employees, and is that not what that's referring to?
That's referring to the.
And it's so that they can get into the pension plan, et cetera. But I just think the way it reads, you could interpret it as that Doug was gonna have 2 more people working for him, and we're gonna pay for
More
it.
specific, basically the employees are.
Just mention the rest of
And that's not a material change, and it has to go back to the board, so it's just a clarification.
Second non-material would be in section 2 under compensation, $7,500 annually. I would like to change that to per fiscal year. Just so somebody doesn't get on the phone.
That makes sense, and it starts July 1st, that makes sense to the end of the fiscal year.
Thank
So
you.
not annual. Well, since we're making a couple of changes, do we vote on this?
You can just vote on it as
Vote on it.
amended.
Okay, as amended.
I move to adopt this as amended.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt and a second. Any other discussions, questions?
Where is this in the process with the county?
The county's already approved it, at our May 21st meeting, right?
Thank you.
But since these are minor changes, we don't have to see that.
Obviously, there's a lot of detailed things to figure out, but we're waiting until, and if the EDA board approved it, and I'm sure there'll be a couple meetings and sit down and start working out the details.
It was supposed to start July 1st, is that correct?
With fiscal year, I think we're trying to match up the audit, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Speaking of the audit, we're waiting on Yacht High, is that correct?
I believe you are, and then we're waiting on it as well. That's right.
On Yacht High, okay.
For the 18 audit.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna try to have a conference call or in-person meeting next week, hopefully, Doug and myself, to see where things are and get things moving along.
We hope.
You need to vote.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. We will now, director comments, item 9, any, board of director comments?
Welcome, Doug and Gretchen.
Yes. We're glad to have them. I think they certainly started off well, and we're glad they're here.
I think we're getting a nice base on our information and where we are. And at the same time, they're looking forward, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, then we have a closed session coming up. Would anyone care to read us into that?
Want me to do it?
Yes.
And just to be clear, we have 4 sections, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, Virginia Code 2.2-3711.8.3, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property. Thank you. Yes. I, Mark Baker, move that the Board of the EDA vote to go into closed session, meeting under the provisions of Section 2.23711 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act for the following purposes. Virginia Code 2.23711.a.3, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or of the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. I further move that discussion be limited to property located on Main Street and Fairgrounds Road. Virginia Code Section 2.23711.a.5, discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business's or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. I further move that discussion be limited to businesses to be located on the Avtex site, Stevens Industrial Park, Main Street, and/or Happy Creek area. Need to take a break. Virginia Code Section 2.23711.a.7, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body. I further move that such discussion be limited to the case of Industrial Development Authority versus Jennifer McDonald et al. Fourth, Virginia Code Section 2.23711.a.8, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. I further move that discussions be limited to the discussions of loans, accounting, and debt services issues. Roll call vote. Baker, aye.
Bailey, aye.
Layton, aye.
Addison, aye.
Okay, we're in closed session. Okay, we are item 11, new business, memorandum of agreement for building and grounds maintenance. There's a copy of it for everyone.
The county has already approved this. Answer any questions?
Well, that was gonna be my question, so good job. Way to anticipate.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
referring to the bylaws, it talks that the secretary, the chairman and the secretary should execute all agreements. I would like to make a motion to amend this to have the chair and the secretary sign the agreement.
That's fine with me, if that's okay.
legally?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just need it,
Just,
I'll just have to get the county to re-sign it, that's not a big deal.
it just,
It's adding a signature line for the.
just a signature line for the chairman and the secretary.
What I can do is have the chairman signing and secretary attesting.
That works, Chair.
And that would be for all legal agreements, for
all such agreements,
resolutions,
yes.
or all such agreements that we would do going forward, according to the amended bylaws.
Well, that's in the bylaws now.
Yeah, and we had passed a resolution back in December that all contracts had to be signed by 2 officers and had to be reviewed by legal.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. So we're just tidying that up. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna amend this, or we're gonna vote on this now?
How are we going to amend it and vote on
You
it?
can just vote on it as amended.
Yeah, as amended.
Make a motion to approve as amended.
So we have a motion. Second. All those in favor say, well, any other discussion? Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. And then the proposal to amend the bylaws. I think we have the things underlined or something.
Yeah,
that
so
changes.
the revised version, everything that's bolded and underlined is new language, everything that's struck through has been removed. And John had reviewed these, and then I did further edits. So if there's any questions or concerns.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
notice in Article 9, subsection 3, the expenditure of funds, it says authority shall fund the expenditure shall be governed by procurement procedures adopted by the Board of Directors. I would like to substitute that it is governed by the Warren County procedures and policies as stated in our agreement with the county for fiscal agent. I think that's non-material.
Yes.
And under section 7, meetings, I don't know that it needs to be in here per se, but I would like to request that we establish a schedule of meetings for the next year at the June meeting, so that everybody will know ahead of time the dates and when they're going to be. And if an emergency comes and we have to schedule something else, we can do it, but we've got a schedule that we can work around.
It's my understanding, Mark, that
Please and thank you.
Well, 4th Friday of the month it works out.
That works fine, I'm happy with that, I just want to make it every month, that's what it is.
Mark, that works for you, generally speaking.
Yeah.
We need to be on a consistent schedule, so that I can block it.
Understandable.
Okay, so everybody's had a chance to read this over and look at these. We've got a couple of amendments.
Did you want that amendment to be in the bylaws and the schedule set at the June meeting?
It could be, yes, if that could be done.
I can do that.
Sure.
Because that's when we elect officers as
Mhm.
well.
That would be fine. Fourth Friday except the December meeting.
Yes, December we usually meet the second Friday.
Well, it's hard to get people from West Virginia down here on Christmas.
Yeah, usually we combine in November and December meetings.
Oh.
We've done it fast.
Vote on the meeting date for everybody until we, we the last Friday, then it's some Friday in December.
Or if we got the schedule, we could put it right in there.
Okay, do we want to adopt this, vote on this now with the changes?
I move the adoption as amended.
Second.
May have a motion and a second. Further discussion, anyone? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, we have new bylaws. That is the last item on the agenda.
The only other thing that you brought up in your executive director report is the lease. We found out late yesterday they want to start the lease June 10th. If that's the case, then we need a motion to approve the terms of the lease for Space C.
Okay.
Because I didn't realize they wanted to start the lease so soon. So we're not going to meet again before that date. So it seems like we're in agreement on the terms.
So
So I
we
can-
want to test them.
So basically, it's the Space C over there. They pay $1,000 a month. It was a 1 year lease with option to renew. And pretty standard lease language for our other leases. But if there's any questions about that.
Do we have a standard lease format? If we do, we use counties or we have our own?
It's one that I established a while ago, but staff here wasn't using that format. They were using their own lease format. So, but this is the lease format that should be used for all our leases.
Thank you.
I would move approval subject to viewing the final physical document. Okay. So that you'd still send and give us a document next month, but you could go ahead and execute this under the terms of 1,000 per month.
So,
It's the standard lease.
so then once we get their signature.
We can email it out to all the
That'd
board
be fine.
members.
I don't want to give approval until I get to see that.
So that will be emailed out?
But we would approve it in concept that you could go ahead and execute.
So basically, you're approving a contingent on viewing it.
Mhm.
Just viewing it.
Yes.
That's fine. It's just, we'll send it out. I think we're in the final form. I can send it out to you later today, an
Okay.
unexecuted version.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
All right. Is that it?
We need
We just need a
Motion.
motion.
I move.
Motion's been made. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Sounds good. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
In favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion adjourned.